I think we are live now.
Excellent. We are live. We shall start. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this month's installment of Credix Insights, where we sit down with thought leaders such as our esteemed guest today, and we just get to ask questions and pick their brains a little bit in the world of credit. Douglas, please, would you kindly introduce yourself?
Hi, thank you, Chris. It's a pleasure to be here. Briefly speak about me. I have been working with credit for almost 20 years. Most of that time, I was focused on credit risk modeling, setting credit policy rules, and also I was in charge of regulatory stuff. And I also had the opportunity to work for some fintechs, and this is a different kind, a different environment I really love. The best is it's an environment much less bureaucratic and more prone to bring innovation. I had the opportunity to live this, and that's why I became very, very happy when I had the opportunity to join Adiante last month.
Excellent. Thank you for that introduction, Douglas. For those who don't know me, I'm Chris Corcino. I head capital markets at Credix. Part of my role within capital markets is to get to know our originators, fintechs, intimately, and this is where the pleasure of working with Douglas comes from. Credix and Adiante have worked together. There have been two structured debt facilities that have been arranged, and I think this kind of partnership just keeps growing. Um, Douglas, maybe we can start with a few questions and kind of take it in form in that regard as well. You focus on short-term accounts receivables. Would you please share with us why this is an asset class that you like so much?
Okay. Before speaking about receivables, we have to understand the market. This market that is mainly what we call trade credit. It's usually today in the relationship between companies, the structure of buy now, pay later. Sometimes a company has, on average here in Brazil, 60 to 70 days to pay the products. So at the end of the history, the seller is finance the buyer. But one side stays short of cash, and there is where Adiante comes in. The seller can advance this money with us with a competitive interest rate, and maybe today, because the market, for example, here in Brazil is hard for long-term debt, so short-term is an opportunity to this kind of operation. For us, this product is an advantage because it has an advantage because at the end, the buyer and the seller both are the debtors of the operation. Both they're responsible to pay the bill. Both has this responsible, so are responsible for the bill. So at the end, we have a product with low risk compared to others in the market. But why Adiante chose this product is interesting. Adiante is a company of the GCB group, and one of the companies of GCB is a financial advisory company, and some customers were owners of companies that used to advance receivables. And in the past, they complain a lot because the interest rates are very high, and the process with big banks were terrible. It was very hard to get the money. So it was clear that we have an underserved market, and that's why Adiante was launched, I think that 2018. Well, and since the beginning, the idea was to have a user-friendly platform to our market that is mainly medium and small-sized companies.
Mhm. Understood. And I do want to get better, deeper into how Adiante and the Adiante ecosystem kind of use smart technology to do what you do better. I just want to kind of use this opportunity to remind the audience that what Credix does as a protocol is we channel institutional investors' capital, and we bring that capital basically all the way down to emerging markets, more specifically Brazil, where we have actually put on the ground. We have about 19 people thus far. We provide the financing. We do all of that, which has been done for a number of years, but we do it with the benefit of blockchain, which means our investors are acquiring tokens, credit tokens. Our investors are funding in digital currency. We are arranging the off ramping, or rather on ramping, depending on how you look at it, all the way until deployment, and then on the repayment all the way back. So within our ecosystem, all the institutional investors are either traditional investors that are providing liquidity now on a digital form, and each has their own multiple kind of reasons for doing that, or digitally native investors, right? Treasuries that now exist because their related DeFi ecosystem have grown to the point that they manage billions. We are channeling that type of capital as well, and it's interesting to see them coexist within Credix. So that's at the end of the day, I guess all of this to highlight that the capital source that flows through Credix is institutional, and for institutional investors, receivables, short-term receivables, is very attractive. The main reason for that is the fact that the performance, historical performance of the asset is uncorrelated to economic cycles, which is very relevant these days, and also the self-liquidation, quick self-liquidation aspect to the asset class, right? 30 days, 45 days later, if all things are done properly, an investor can assume to be out of the risk, right? And that is a premium in market, particularly more so in certain market environments. So, Douglas, I would like to go back to the question of the um, asset selection, rather the origination and underwriting aspect. How do you use technology at Adiante to get to better results? Can you give us a few examples, please?
Okay. Here at Adiante, we are extremely data driven. We try to explore mainly public information, all the fingerprints of the customers. We try to get the information, and I also have partnership with several credit bureaus. Here in Brazil is very important because they collect also all the information about the debtors, and also positive information that we can use to work better with pricing. Well, it's important to I think that we had two sides in this process. The first one is to analyze our customers, our main customer, that is the seller, the company that has the right to receive the invoice, and we analyze the credit aspects, but also frauds. That's a big problem here in Brazil. And everything is made in at our platform with the use of many machine learning models that we regularly change, because the market and the information changes a lot. So this is one part. The second part is to analyze the buyer, and the risk of the invoice, because as the debt is against both of them, we try to originate really good credit from both perspectives. It's important to have the customer and the debtor at the end with good records in the market to guarantee our operation. Also, not only the credit granting process, but also pricing process automatic. So we always change as soon as the funding cost change, or we see any short-term difference in the level of risk. So it's a real reliable process, and the best part is that no one takes individual decision. No one. Everything is made by our platform. So it's a secure process and real reliable.
And it's 100% developed in-house?
Yes. Today we use Amazon clouds, so everything is made in SageMaker. That's the important tool for Amazon, and it is we believe it's a really safe and good process for us. Everything nowadays is made inside Adiante.
Understood. Very insightful. You were speaking about sort of doing the underwriting before, and then one question that we often hear on the asset class, particularly when non-EM investors start to look at the space seriously because of their understanding of how trade receivables work. The question about double pledging comes up often. Do you mind kind of going deeper in that, what that risk is and how it is addressed at Adiante?
Yes, of course. It is one of the risk of frauds. It's unfortunately it's very common. Some companies try to get money from several lenders using the same pledging the same invoice. That's a kind of fraud. It's against the law. And as I said before, we have several controls for frauds. The double pledge is one of them. This problem for us today is very low. But here in Brazil, we are in a moment that indeed we learn a lot in the past 2 years when we create some registration chambers, centers of receivables of credit cards. It was the first time that it was made in Brazil, and these bring only positive results, mainly lowering the cost of credit, the interest rates. And now, this year, we are in a moment that the same is will be made with receivables as a whole. So we believe that with this process, the fraud of this kind will be zero, because every time we get an invoice to check, we will have a center where we can check it out, and it's it's good for the market as a whole. Though the end, this kind of fraud will be reduced to zero. Our idea, I look forward to have everything done until the end of this year. To the market as a whole, the system is operating, and we are. I think that maybe this month we will join the system here in Brazil.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing that. A reminder to the audience that you can also share your questions in the comment section of the event, and we should be able to see and address those questions as they come through. Douglas, shifting our attention a little bit to the sort of what's in the news type of topics, interest rates, right? Other asset classes are subject to ceilings. There has been some of that in the news recently. There's a heightened alert in the financial markets, right? Which sometimes translates into a crisis on the credit side, right? Right now, it's kind of bank's balance sheet, etc., right? But how is this, if any, how showing up as of late in recent originations, both at the cost level, right? Cost of borrowing, cost to the consumer, and also on a performance level? Are there differences in delinquency buckets? Shed some light, please, in terms of what you're seeing these days.
Okay, Chris. I think that I used to read every day this kind of news in the newspaper, so everybody is very worried about this topic. Well, the history start long before, until mid 2021, where here in Brazil we saw the lowest interest rate in the history. So the companies borrow a lot to invest, to grow. It was a unique moment here in the whole history. But since then, the market changed. We had the problem of inflation rates here in Brazil and also in the world. And what our central bank did was increase the basic interest rates. I think that nowadays it's maybe one of the biggest in the world, and some companies, mainly those that are more leveraged, they have problems to repay the debts. So, and unfortunately, we saw some bankruptcies nowadays. But and another problem is that the market as a whole, the granting of credit is decreasing. Because everybody is waiting for the decisions from the government about the expenditures, because it's a big concern here. But it's not a big problem for Adiante for some reasons. As I said before, some companies that today had problems to take money in long term can change this, and some are changed to short-term lending. And this is where we can help those companies giving cash. And also we operate on sectors that are not so leveraged, indebted, like, for example, retail markets, the wholesale trades. So they don't have this kind of big problem nowadays. So we don't see bad. Or, for example, our default or delinquency is not raising like the market average. So, but it's important to see the market as a whole, because we always think 1 year, 2 year ahead. So we have this kind of concern here, and we try to guide our operation to sectors that are not so impacted by the high interest rates that we are seeing. We hope that these start to decrease and give some space to employment, to consumption, and to economy to keep growing as it was happening before.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that, Douglas. Once again, very, very insightful. I want to ask you to spend the next few minutes, please, walking us through the collection process, right? I think we've established why Adiante focuses on short-term trade receivables. We've covered also a few other topics, but at some point, all these assets need to be collected, which triggers repayments throughout the rest of the infrastructure, right? And moreover, if there are lack of payments, then the servicing process kicks in. Please tell us how you view collection and what your procedures are around as the situation migrates.
Okay, good question, Chris. In the how our granting process, we also try to have automatic process. So we try to deliver an easy-to-use platform, not only us, but we have a partner that work with us. But in general, here in Brazil, the payments as a whole, they mainly of them are made by bank payment slips, but it's not good because we only receive the money after 1 day. They pay 1 day, and we only have cash the next day. But we are changing out our process, and lots of our customers are paying by Pix. That's it was a revolution here, because you can pay any day, any hour, and the debt is cleared. So one thing that we are trying to work is to focus on Pix payments. But everything, this is when the customer pay until the due dates. When unfortunately some of them pay later, and for those clients we have a process that we send some warnings for both for the customer, the seller, and also to the buyer who at the end have to pay the bill, and both of them are responsible for the debt. So if they don't pay back until I think some 1 or 2 weeks, it's common in Brazil. We present the debt to some credit bureaus, where all the markets has the information, and it is important to make the debtor regularize the bill with us. And also in this process, we see lots of opportunities, mainly with machine learning models, because we can use this to select the best discounts, the best way of payment, and this is another opportunity that we are working now to use more data in the collection process.
That's extremely interesting. Would you mind going a little bit deeper in terms of what type of data would be used for the machine learning models process?
Okay. Well, public data we have lots of. So we have the information about the company. We have the invoice have lots of information about the product. For example, for fraud is very important to know the pattern the company used to sell. So if there is some strange change in the invoice, we see that we can have a higher risk level. So it's very used in our process nowadays. We also use all the public information from the buyers, who have to pay the bill, the company who bought the products. So unfortunately, all the negative information that are in the credit bureaus we use, but the difference is positive information. For example, all the information from central bank that we access. So if how many banks the company operates, which kind of products, credit products the company use, if it is adequate, if it fits to the size of the company, so we can extract lots of credit and fraud insights, and this really improved our machine learning models greatly. Well, but I believe we have lots of opportunities.
Yeah, I think from my perspective, certainly the message is you have the infrastructure to absorb the data and apply that to your process, right? So not many companies are doing that currently, certainly, and using that to the extent that you're using it, which is one of the reasons we find what you're doing fascinating. I want to turn our attentions a little bit to the comment section, right? And actually, I can perhaps address these questions, breaking it down a little bit. Every transaction that Credix does, or rather that qualified investors can find in the Credix platform, have their own eligibility criteria, right? So think of your average private market structured credit transaction. It's that with a huge added benefit. It's on the blockchain. So with that as a starting point, and we really haven't gotten into the various type of risk tokens in the credit ecosystem, but there are, right? Some investors have preference for shorter terms, longer terms, senior positions, subordinated positions. So all of that is reflected within our ecosystem in different risk level tokens. So every transaction, my point is, has its own eligibility criteria, and that would be how receivables are screened to meet the criteria. There's a servicer, sometimes there is a master servicer in charge of making sure this trustee, right, to ensure that the transaction is meeting the criteria. And if that criteria is not meet, some triggers, or rather, some events are triggered, right? And that takes the transaction into early amortization to protect investors. When the underlying asset class is trade receivables, that's what we have here. Then the revolving stops, and one tool goes out. So hopefully that addresses that question. Um, just to kind of keep the discussion going, we can come back to a few more of the other questions in a minute. Douglas, I think this conversation has been really insightful, and we've kind of gone deep very quickly, and perhaps my fault. It was just exciting to do that. I want to ask you to take a few steps back and share with the group some color on the depth of the trade receivables, accounts receivable, whether it's factoring, whether it's discounting, market in Brazil, and how it customarily is done, just for a higher level context on the market, please.
Okay, we have lots of receivables in the markets and lots of players. Since big banks, they in Brazil, unfortunately, we have a big concentration. So when you see the central bank numbers, more than half of the market is in the hand of the we call S1 banks that are the biggest ones. And we also have several assets that can be pledged as collaterals. And here at Adiante, nowadays we work with only one, but our idea is to expand our portfolio. And as I said, I think that the second one is credit cards. This is very important, mainly for small companies. They usually it's the difference to keep the store open, and I think that everybody advances credit card receivables. It's very easy, and this is one of the ideas here at Adiante, is to have a easier process. Only to take the opportunity to share with our audience how we work here for the customer. Only to give an idea, to open an account here to discounts to advance your receivable, you only have to give the registration number of the company, the email, and the cell phone of the one partner. Only with this information, we have to provide us our machine learning assess the risk with only three information, and you are approved or not. So our idea to this market is really improve mainly the process, as we saw with credit cards. Today is very easy to advance money, and we want to provide this for every company that you want to work with us. I think about the process, and our idea is to as I said, to open our portfolio to other assets. But this is one thing that we are working at. Unfortunately, the work of check discount, we call it factory here, or all the assets are not so there is not a big market for them like we see to credit cards and invoices and this kind of assets. So as I joined Adiante last month, I not yet have all the details of the market to share here.
Got it, understood. But that was very helpful, nonetheless. I can't help but think of software as a service when I hear you describe, the process, the machine learning process, how you automate as much as you can. Does that thought ever cross your minds, or is that just not ever meant to leave in-house? You understand my question? In other words, are you interested in selling your solution to others as a service?
Oh, yes. Yes. Oh, of course. We are thinking about in your roadmap in the future, our solution could be not only provide credit, but provide our inside the ecosystem. It's because it's very, as I said before, it's really reliable and scalable. So I think that there are lots of opportunities to develop, improve the system, sell maybe not only credit solution but also, for example, fraud solution. Fraud is a big problem, and we had lots of insights here that we are using today at our in our process. But I think that when we deliver this kind of solution to the market, everybody, the market as a whole get better. So we have this kind of concern here.
Very interesting. You've mentioned in a couple of topics we've discussed so far, fraud or fraud prevention, right? It seems it's kind of embedded in your process, in your thinking, your origination, your underwriting. It's always looking to catch any type of situations. Would it be possible, without getting into proprietary information, of course, but would it be possible for you to zoom us in a bit and describe how that screening for someone to come and get financing through Adiante, you're running a screening, right? Whether that screening be for identity, whether that screening be for other reasons. Just walk us through how you, or key milestones in that process. Again, in the context of we understand you're very thoughtful and thorough on the screening process. Help us understand a bit more how you went through that.
Oh, okay. As I said before, our process is very simple for the clients, the customers that you approve at first sight. But you have lots of controls here. So, for example, in Brazil, it's very common the people who want to fraud to get credit open an account. This is a problem that I saw in other companies that I worked, and it's very common. It's very easy to open an account in some banks here in Brazil. For example, if you want to, you only have to give a few information, and you can open an account in the name of other person. This is a fraud, and we look very closely for this kind of account, but not only us. Everybody has this kind of concern. When this happens, for example, we have a second step here, the fraud process, fraud control process. It is to ask the of one partner to provide us a Face ID. So we have we collect that information and check all the information to assess if he's the real person and the person is a real partner of the company. When this is okay, we go to the next step. This is one example of several controls that we have here in our fraud process. So we have two lines. We have all the fraud controls and all the credit controls. This to control this kind of risk too.
Excellent. Thanks again for that. Let's look at more questions here in the comment section. So I think the question can be answered actually twofold, by you on one layer and by us on the other. I'll give you some room to catch a breath. I'll go first, and then I'll kick it over back to you. Um, the question, and I try to broaden it as I put it here, right? The question is, there is in the current Brazilian economic environment, right? So someone familiar with what's going on, and it's just a scenario of high credit risk from that person's perspective. But no one will disagree that the markets are a little bit, jumpy. Um, what do you believe is the main risk to be evaluating rental credit and minimize loss given default? Um, from a credit as a platform level, I like to highlight the fact that we have a curated library of asset classes, right? So as I was mentioning earlier, there are some tenors higher, some tenors longer, excuse me, shorter. One set is consumer, short-term related, etc. So this particular discussion is centered around trade receivables. A significant portion of our transactions are in this asset class. And particularly because of that, we're all seeing what's going on in the global credit markets. We we thought it was timely to highlight this asset class. Trade receivables have a very short duration, 30, 45, maybe 60, at most 90 days payment term is the global standard. And when investors are concerned about liquidity, right, structured credits, asset-backed transactions can liquidate as soon as the underlying asset liquidates. Uh, this type of asset class allows us to do that. So certainly we're very mindful of the current market environment, and that's why we think having a discussion around asset class that are naturally able to fare well in such a scenario, such as trade receivables, it's worth having a conversation around that. Um, when it comes down to what happens when loss, or rather, what's the loss given default rate, right? You have to understand both the asset and the liability schedule. So for that, it's certainly a specific transaction, um, and that's kind of on a deal by deal basis. And if you have a senior position versus subordinated position, it's slightly different. So I hope that addresses that question. I do want to ask Douglas to kind of address the same question, right? I think it's also very interesting to learn, given the current environment, if that how that rather impacts origination, right? The selection of the assets, the selection of the risk, but we seem to have lost Douglas, and he's in the process of getting back. It's
Oh God.
excellent. Timing couldn't have been perfect. So Douglas, you might have missed the tail end of my question, but to the audience, I wanted to give a view from Credix side. I believe the question, as I want to throw it back to you, is in the current environment, how is that changing how you select assets? We know it's automated in along the process, but what are you feeding that logic, that algorithm these days?
Okay, that's a good question. First of all, we try to diversify our portfolio. So we concern for us is concentration. So what we looking for, and we work every day, limit our exposures to sector concentration, to one buyer and only one seller making deals together. So we try to limit the risk at each step of the process. So this way we can limit our the exposure at the moment of default. And we learned our portfolio is very sensitive this profile, to this kind of information about the operations. Another thing, we try to control the term. We don't like to work with long receivables. So we choose very well the term and adjust it to the risk to maximize the return. But we have a concern with longer operations. I don't know. I think that nowadays those are the same, the main. Of course, we use internal credit risk assessment and other tools, but as a whole, those are some information that we pay more attention.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. I want to switch gears a little bit, and if there are other questions from the audience, please do continue to send them in. I think we've spent a good amount talking about what Adiante does, and we also share about the Credix ecosystem. We've done 2 deals together, and we know there's more on the way. Share with the audience, please, Douglas, your experience with Credix, why you chose Credix as a partner, and where you see this partnership going in the near future.
Okay. Well, I have the opportunity to meet the Credix not long ago, but on those short time, it was clear that 2 things are very important in this relationship. One, work with Credix, from my perspective, is a trustful company. So we in the scenario, one problem that every company has in Brazil is funding research. And Credix more than provide us with fund for our credit operation, also bring expertise to our operation. It is very interesting because nowadays we have another company here in the GCB group that I think that is not for institutional, but for people in general. We call PBR, and we can choose the source of funds, each PBR or Credix, very easily, and all the structure is very easy to access the money, and for us we are very comfort. It's a comfortable moment for us, different of other companies, to get access to fund resources. And this is the good parties from our partnership with Credix that makes our operation safer for everybody, for us and for all the customers that want to get money with us.
Excellent. Thank you for that. And where do you see the partnership? Ideally, where would you see the partnership going?
Nice. Well, we hope to grow this year. As we have the cycle of product is very short, so in some moments the process of granting credit can increase a lot. And this partner, I believe that the partnership, the Credix, we see you and all the team as a partner, that a partnership that will last for a long time. We have a roadmap, aggressive roadmap, so I am very comfortable that we can count on Credix for these things happen in the future.
Thank you for sharing that. We certainly are very excited as well, and do believe we have lots of runway still to go. In fact, our model is one where we work with originators and we do sort of a quick, smaller transactions. You've gone through this process, right?
Yeah.
We prove the concept works. We make sure the technology works. We establish a track record, right? We get institutional investor comfortable. We get fintech originator comfortable. We also are a technology first company. So along with us, there comes an integration aspect to it, which we drive to the very front because then it makes everything else move a lot smoother, a lot more efficiently. Uh,
Yes.
and in that process, we're really setting you up for much larger transactions, which is what we're here for. Douglas, I want to one last time thank you for your time. I certainly enjoyed our conversation, and I hope the audience finds it insightful. Thank you, and goodbye.
Bye bye. Thank you, Chris.